Welcome to the League of Nerds comic book segment number 35. I'm John Cooney, here to talk to you about comics released the 3rd of October, 2012. And by request, we're going to change the format up a little this week. I'm going to start off by giving you my first 5. Those are the top 5 books that I am looking forward to reading this week. And I'll give you a little more detail on those books. I'll round out the top 10 for this week with the remaining 5 books, and then I'll give you the best of the rest with the other books that are for your consideration this week. And I also have a trade paperback that I want to talk to you about this week too. Let's start it off with the first 5. I'm not going to do this in a top 10 format counting down. I'm going to start with number 1, and this week that's Avengers Vs X-Men number 12. This is the culmination of months of direct and years of indirect storylines, concluding as we reach the finality of this 70-plus issue event that sets the stage for the future of Marvel in their new initiative, Marvel Now. Trying to tell the story so far without spoiling anything for those of you who haven't kept up is difficult, but we know a little about the probable outcome based on the apparent impact it has in these new Marvel Now titles, such as Uncanny Avengers launching later this month, all new Xmen launching in November, the Avengers launching in December, and the new Avengers launching in January. Most notably is the fact that the all-new X-Men features the original X-Men team lineup, including the long-dead Jean Grey, the previous wielder of the Phoenix Force. Number 2 this week is Thief of Thieves number 9. Now this is created by Robert Kirkman, who we know of course from The Walking Dead and also from Invincible. Thief of Thieves is the story of Conrad Poulsen, a master thief known as Redmond, who decides to quit just before attempting his biggest heist yet, and instead begins a new career of stealing from other thieves, trying to make up for all of his previous mistakes, and finding he's now running from people on both sides of the law. I like it because it has a very cinematic feel to it, kind of like the Ocean's 11 movies, and it's actually being developed as a TV series on AMC after the success that they experienced with the Emmy Award-winning Walking Dead series and the relationship that they've developed with Robert Kirkman as a producer. At number 3 this week, we've got Before Watchmen, Rorschach number 2. There's been a lot of controversy surrounding the entire Before Watchmen project, and it's certainly understandable because Alan Moore is not involved with these stories. The creators stepping into his shoes have a difficult task ahead of them. If they stick too close to the original portrayal, they get accused of unimaginative mirroring. But if they stray too far, then they're blamed for ruining the spirit of the character. And personally, I felt that DC has done an excellent job of matching the artist and writer teams to these characters. And the case in point, this week's Before Watchmen Rorschach pairing of Brian Azzarello and Lee Bermejo. Azzarello's hard and gritty style of staccato dialogue suits the established patterns of Rorschach from his narration in the original Watchmen series, and Bermejo's ultra-detailed and hyper-realistic artwork demonstrates every seedy aspect of the world Rorschach lives in and focuses on. At number 4, we've got Amazing Spider-Man number 695. Now, anyone familiar with Spider-Man knows that with great power comes great responsibility. And you'd think, as we reach issue 695, that they would have exhausted that mantra by now. But I have to say that they've continued to find new ways of making the moral obligation that Peter Parker feels fresh and relevant. For example, we just finished a storyline in the last issue, number 694, where Peter was involved in creating a new alpha-level power class superhero named, Alpha. And, of course, because Peter's driving motivation, he feels a sense of responsibility for the actions of this individual and is determined to train him and teach him the price of this potentially unlimited power. Now imagine his dilemma then when his pupil is not too receptive to the idea of responsibility. Now with issue 695, we enter a new storyline featuring the Kingpin and the return of the Hobgoblin as we build to the monumental final issue, number 700, which will conclude the series as we roll into the Marvel Now relaunch. Speaking of conclusions, at number 5 we have Daredevil End of Days number 1 of 8, which tells the final Daredevil story, similar to other Marvel of the End titles, and features an all-star lineup of Daredevil favorites on the creative team. It's written by Brian Michael Bendis, who wrote Daredevil from 2001 to 2006, and David Mack, who also wrote and did covers and some of the art on the run with Bendis. It's drawn by Klaus Janson, who collaborated with Frank Miller during his seminal run on Daredevil in the mid-'80s, and it's inked, or more accurately painted, by Bill Sienkiewicz, who also worked with Miller notably on Daredevil Love and War and Elektra Assassin, and it features covers by Alex Maleev, who provided much of the art through the Bendis issues on Daredevil, as well as several other collaborations. Now, this isn't just some potential what-if style take on the possible end of Daredevil. According to Bendis, who said, quote, "It goes a little further than most of the end stories, and we make it canon. This is in continuity, not too dissimilar to how Dark Knight Returns became continuity through sheer force of will." End quote. This final mystery of Matt Murdock is left to be solved and told through the investigative reporter Ben Urich. Rounding out the top 10 for this week at number 6, we've got Uncanny X-Men number 19. This is a critical tie-in to the Avengers Vs X-Men number 12 that I discussed earlier, and it gives us a different perspective on the conflict and the outcome, and it sets up for the significant aftermath to follow. At number 7, we've got AVX versus number 6. This is the Scarlet Witch versus Hope, straight out of Avengers vs. X-Men number 12. And if 2 fights weren't enough for the last issue, they've packed many more fights and fan-favorite characters in as possible, with many fights from the best creators in the business, including Jeff Loeb, Arthur Adams, Stuart and Catherine Emmeline, Jason Aaron, and several others. At number 8, we've got Fatale number 8. It's a turning point for the second arc of Brubaker and Phillips' successful series. What is Josephine's secret plan, and what has she been doing all these years on the run from the 50s to the late 70s? And has her monster that's haunted her for the most part of her life returned? At number 9, we've got Avengers Academy number 38, guest starring the staff and students of Wolverine and the X-Men. Because you demanded it, it's the flag football game between Avengers Academy and the Jean Grey School. And number 10, we've got Detective Comics number 13, All Kneel Before Emperor Penguin. There's a hit out on Bruce Wayne, and this is a new story from writer John Layman, who we know from Chew, and it guest stars Nightwing. Now for the best of the rest, we've got from DC Action Comics number 13, you don't want to miss this return of Krypto. Superman must face down a threat from the Phantom Zone with the help of the Phantom Stranger. Grant Morrison makes a major change in Action Comics in this issue. We've also got Batwing number 13, Batwing versus Father Lost and his Cult of Death. He's a new villain introduced in this issue, and we also are introduced to 2 new heroes. We've got Earth 2 number 5, it's the final showdown with Grundy. The Green Lantern, Hawkgirl, and the Flash take on Grundy and the military's hero, the Atom. The Green Lantern makes a choice that'll change the course of Earth 2 forever. We've got Green Arrow number 13, Green Arrow in China battling zombie warriors. Side by side with Chinese kung fu genius extraordinaire Susie Ming, Ollie comes home to find trouble in the sky over Seattle. Trouble that'll lead to Hawkmen Wanted storyline starting next month in Green Arrow and the Savage Hawkmen. We've got World's Finest number 5. Power Girl and Huntress attempt to get back to Earth 2, but is the boom tube just a one-way trip? And the secrets of Power Girl's abilities are revealed. From Marvel, we've got Minimum Carnage Alpha number 1. Minimum Carnage begins as Carnage is back, and bigger isn't necessarily better. Scarlet Spider and Venom collide as the hunt for Carnage begins, taking both heroes to a place you'll never believe. From IDW, we've got Doctor Who number 1, as we welcome a new and exciting era for everyone's favorite Time Lord, as New York Times best-selling writer Andy Diggle, who we know from The Losers, pilots the TARDIS as the ongoing series architect. Joining him for the first arc is Eisner Award-winning artist Mark Buckingham, who we know from Fables, who will also provide covers for the series. From Image Comics, we've got Guarding the Globe number 2. What does it take to defend an entire planet? As the Guardians of the Globe divide their forces to deal with threats all over the Earth, simultaneously a darker, familiar threat continues to loom under their very noses. We've also got Harvest number 3. Set up for murder, Dr. Benjamin Dane finds himself wanted by a black market surgical squad and the FBI, with only an outcast assassin to protect him, none of which will help stop him from getting to his next patient. Plus, the freaky kid is back. Out in trades this week, I wanted to be sure to mention The Walking Dead Compendium Volume 2 trade paperback, returning with the second 8 volumes of the fan-favorite New York Times best-selling series collected into one massive paperback collection. This is the perfect collection for fans of the Emmy Award-winning television series on AMC. It's over 1,000 pages chronicling the next chapters of Robert Kirkman's Eisner Award-winning continuing story of survival horror, beginning with Rick Grimes' struggle to survive after the prison raid, to the group's finding short solace in the community and the devastation that follows. This title collects Walking Dead issues number 49 through 96. Well, that's it from me this week. I hope you enjoyed this new format with a little more depth Be sure to let me know your feedback on my comic book blog at he'sgotissues.com. You can check in there, see the books that I'm reading as I read them, and let me know if there are any other books that you think I should be including in these reviews. So until next week, I'm John Cooney, and I've got issues.